Dopamine is the feel-good neurotransmitters. As you may know, dopamine has a close link to pleasure and reward. Well, of course, it's not as straightforward as that. There's a lot more to this complicated chemical that meets the eye. Where does dopamine come from? What happens when it comes low? How about when it's high? What is dopamine fasting, and is it really effective? These are the questions we're going to answer in this video. Welcome to Wiki YouTube, YouTube's platform with the most up-to-date information about anything in the globe. Subscribing to us is completely free and greatly appreciated. Dopamine is a kind of neurotransmitter that is produced in the brain. It essentially serves as a chemical messenger between neurons. When your brain anticipates a reward, dopamine is released. When you start to link a certain activity with pleasure, just anticipating it might cause your dopamine levels to rise. It might be a certain type of cuisine, sex, shopping, or just about anything else. Dopamine has a role in both neurological and psychological processes. It has an impact on our motor functions, emotions, and even decision making. It's also linked to various psychological and behavioral issues. Dopamine, like all neurotransmitters, follows a cycle that begins with a neuron producing it, called the presynaptic cell. That cell produces dopamine, which floats out into the synapse, the space between neurons, where it comes into touch and attaches to receptors on the other neuron, which then transmits the signal to the second neuron. Dopamine is swiftly eliminated and degraded when it completes its task. The effects of dopamine on the brain are very dependent on the neurons involved and the receptors that bind the dopamine. It has been found in creatures ranging from lizards to humans for a long time, and it has a lengthy evolutionary history. People, on the other hand, have a lot of dopamine, and we seem to have evolved to create more and more of it over time, probably because it allows us to be more aggressive and competitive. Dopamine's effects are determined by which of the four paths it uses to enhance communication in the brain and body. The first is the nigrostriatal tract, which is involved in body movement control. When neurons in that system quit firing, illnesses like Parkinson's can develop. Dopamine affects kidney and cardiac function, as well as nausea and psychosis. Many schizophrenia medications target dopamine. Because dopamine was involved in signal transmission, scientists assumed it had something to do with pleasure initially. Researchers hypothesized that low amounts of dopamine caused a person to sense less pleasure since people with clinical depression have low levels of dopamine in their brains. Although low levels of dopamine may not directly cause depression, they may elicit certain symptoms linked with sadness. These signs and symptoms include lack of enthusiasm, concentration problems, sense of powerlessness and hopelessness, lack of passion for previously leisure activity. Most mental health issues and challenges are difficult to attribute to a single source. They are, however, frequently connected to too much or too little dopamine in various areas of the brain. Here are several examples. Schizophrenia. Researchers once thought that symptoms were caused by an overactive dopamine pathway. We now know that some of them are caused by too much of this substance in particular brain areas. This involves delusions and hallucinations. A lack of it in other areas might manifest itself in a variety of ways, including a lack of drive and desire. Misuse and addiction to drugs. Cocaine, for example, may generate a large, rapid surge in dopamine in the brain. This fully satisfies your natural reward system. However, repeated drug use raises the bar for this type of pleasure. This implies you'll need more to achieve the same high. Meanwhile, pharmaceuticals reduce your body's natural ability to create dopamine. When you're sober, this causes emotional lows. Humans most often abused substances. Opiates, alcohol, nicotine, and amphetamines cause neurochemical response that greatly boosts the quantity of dopamine produced by neurons in the brain's reward system. The sense of being high is the outcome of this dopamine rush. When drugs and alcohol alter the chemistry of the brain adapts. When the brain has gotten conditioned to the adoption, it will desire to fix an imbalance when the medication is no longer available by taking it again. Substance abuse disorder alters the structure and function of the brain throughout time. What produces high amounts of dopamine? Dopamine levels in the brain can surge as a result of eating specific meals, using illegal substances, or participating in actions like gambling. Dopamine increases can provide sensations of happiness, euphoria, and increased motivation and attention. Dopamine fasting. There's a new type of fast, but it has nothing to do with dieting. Dopamine fasting is a trendy lifestyle fad in Silicon Valley. It includes cutting oneself off from practically any stimulus for 24 hours. Fans of fasting argue that we are also overwhelmed with information and entertainment that we have grown numbed to dopamine hits. While dopamine does increase in reaction to rewards or enjoyable activities, it does not decrease when you ignore overstimulating activities. Therefore, a dopamine fast is ineffective. We have tackled harmful ways to increase dopamine, but there are ways to boost it naturally and healthy. Drink some coffee. Caffeine has a profound influence on our productivity, as most of us have experienced. It not only relieves grogginess, but it also boosts dopamine production, particularly in the region of the brain connected to attention and focus. Sweeteners should be avoided. Sugar gives you a dopamine rush, but it's not a healthy one, and it'll make you addicted to it. Increase the amount of monounsaturated fats in your diet. Monounsaturated fatty acids are heart-healthy fatty acids that defend against cardiovascular disease. More monounsaturated fats were shown to assist enhance mood and lead to decreased anger and irritation. Monounsaturated fats may be found in a variety of foods including nuts, olive oil, peanut oil, avocados, and canola oil. The old notion that being outside is healthy for you has some truth. When you're exposed to sunshine, it increases the amount of dopamine receptors in your skin and provides vitamin D, which activates genes that help you produce dopamine. Light, in general, causes dopamine release in the eyes, which is perhaps why we enjoy staring at computer displays. Acquire the appropriate amount of sleep. I'm sure you know that people get irritable when they don't get enough sleep. One explanation is that not getting enough sleep affects the amount of dopamine receptors in your brain. A steady supply of dopamine in your system has a few more advantages besides being the ultimate motivator. It aids with weight loss. It gives you a sense of being more alive. It helps you remember things. Stops self-destructive behavior such as some addictions. It works to alleviate depression. Allows you to avoid impulsive actions, help in the prevention of Parkinson's illness. Dopamine has taken on a mythical status among neurotransmitters in the brain. Decades of study have shown its significance in a variety of seemingly unrelated brain activities, including as learning, motivation, and movement, raising the question of how a solitary neurotransmitter can play so many functions. In this video, we learn about dopamine and its function in controlling desire and reward-driven behavior. People who have more dopamine feel better, and this positive sensation pushes them to continue the action that made them feel good. Dopamine is an essential part of survival, if you think of it this way. Please like and subscribe to learn more about awesome things with YouTube Wiki, your #1 source of information about everything in the universe.